Do you know what this is? A pea shooter, one of the most recognizable characters of the 2010s, one that helped popularize mobile gaming throughout the decade. Now, do you know what this is? A pea shooter minifigure. Released in 2014 as part of the short-lived Plants vs. Zombies construction line by Knex. But did you know these are not the only officially licensed Plants vs. Zombies construction toys? In fact, over the past 10 years, multiple companies have held the license to Plants vs. Zombies, yet I rarely see people talk about these online. So, today on the channel, I want to take a deep dive into the bizarre world of Plants vs. Zombies construction toys, objectively analyzing the three main companies that have produced toys over the years, breaking down the good, the bad, and the bricks. This is Brick Failures. Our story begins in 2008 with an independent American company called Knex. Now, unlike most construction toy companies that simply repurpose LEGO's expired brick patent to produce compatible products, Joel Glickman developed an entirely original system built around rods and connectors. This design philosophy emphasized motion engineering and large-scale builds, allowing kids and adults to construct motorized Ferris wheels, towering roller coasters, and complex mechanical structures. When Knex first hit retail in 1992, it completely disrupted the market. Sales grew steadily year after year, gradually carving out a share of LEGO's dominance. In fact, LEGO responded in 1998 with its own rod and connector system called Snap, which was a clear attempt to compete with Knex's growing popularity. And throughout the early 2000s, Knex showed no signs of slowing down. As the construction toy market expanded by 14% annually, Knex consistently outperformed expectations with revenue increases of up to 30% year over year. But by the mid-2000s, the landscape began to shift. LEGO, under new management, launched an extensive action plan built around strong original product and blockbuster licenses. Mega Bloks also surged in popularity with its own strong original product and strong blockbuster licenses. In contrast, Knex did experiment with original brands like Mech Warriors, but for the most part remained focused on open-ended engineering and educational play. By 2005, sales plateaued. It was clear that the market was now fully driven by IP products and not non-linear play. Enter Michael Ayrton. In 2006, Knex underwent a major leadership shift as Michael Ayrton stepped in as president and CEO. Under his direction, the company began pivoting away from traditional retailers, instead focusing on expanding its online presence, particularly through platforms like Amazon. This strategic move allowed Knex to reach consumers directly, bypassing crowded shelf space and retail gatekeeping. At the same time, Ayrton emphasized licensing deals as a key growth strategy for the brand, as it began releasing products that could appeal to all types of age ranges like Sesame Street or NASCAR. Ayrton also particularly viewed the growth of the video games industry as a fundamental part of their plan, as they approached Nintendo about licensing their original IPs. By 2010, Knex had fully rebounded. In a matter of 2 years, the company grew to over $150 million in sales, with Super Mario particularly doing well for the company. But Ayrton wasn't done yet. As the mobile games market began to grow in popularity, Ayrton saw another opportunity to replicate the Super Mario success. Enter Plants vs. Zombies. In August of 2013, Knex announced a new licensing deal with PopCap Games, just as Plants vs. Zombies 2 was launching globally. Now, this partnership made total sense for both sides. The original Plants vs. Zombies had become a cultural phenomenon with over 100 million downloads, and its gameplay loop could be easily translated into construction toys. So, at the 2014 New York Toy Fair, Knex officially unveiled its full product lineup of PVZ. Wave 1 was divided into 3 categories: blind bags, entry-level sets, and play sets. The first blind bag series included 8 figures: a basic zombie, a mummy zombie, a cowboy zombie, a future conehead zombie, a pea shooter, bloomerang, bok choy, and a sunflower. Now, the figures themselves were awesome. The zombies featured a new humanoid body design distinct from the Mario figures, with articulated elbows and legs. And each plant came with a play feature or an accessory that accurately reflected its in-game powers. For the entry-level sets, these were simple 2-packs that included 1 plant, 1 zombie, and a small build. The first set was called the Mummy Tomb and featured a raw zombie and a bloomerang. Then we had the pirate ship, including Snapdragon and a pirate zombie. And finally, we got Walnut Bowling that included a walnut and a basic zombie. Now, the playsets themselves offered more elaborate scenes and gameplay setups. First, we got the Wild West Skirmish, depicting a pea shooter battling 3 cowboy zombies. Similarly, we got Jetpack Zombie Attack, featuring Laser Beam fending off 3 future zombies, and the flagship set of the wave was called Pirate Seas Plank Walk, recreating the Pirate Seas level as kids could build a 5-lane backyard battlefield, and with the included motor, they could send zombies down the lane and fight them off with the 2 included plans like Cabbage Bolt and the Coconut Cannon, making this the most complete and dynamic set in the wave. Later in the year, we got a second wave of products, with Series 2 of the blind bags doing more of the same, as we got Cabbage Bolt, Plant Food Bok Choy, Snow Pea, Infinite, Frozen Zombie, Conehead Mummy Zombie, Pirate Zombie, and Prospector Zombie. While all the molds were reused from the first wave, the repetition kinda made sense within the context of the brand. In the game, you use multiples of the same characters, so while the execution may have felt lazy, it did give fans a cheap way to gain multiples of the same characters. Alongside the blind bags, Knex released 2 new playsets, the Cone Mech and the Football Mech. Both sets included motorized components that allowed the mechs to walk in a straight line, accurately adapting the source material. As a whole, the 2014 product line was well executed. While the rod and connector system could be kind of visually distracting with its bright colors clashing with the duller printed cardboard backgrounds, Knex still delivered fantastic play-driven products that allowed kids to recreate and create their own Plants vs. Zombie stories. For 2015, no new product was released, but the line wasn't abandoned. Knex continued to promote and distribute the first 2 waves, keeping the brand visible through retail and online channels. It wouldn't be till mid-2016 that Knex introduced Series 3 of the blind bags. This wave included Sunflower, Snapdragon, Laser Beam, Fire Pea Shooter, Conehead Peasant Zombie, Beach Flag Zombie, Cave Zombie, and Adventurer Zombie. While most of the plant molds were reused again, we did technically get 2 new zombie sculpts that added some variety. But with the release of Garden Warfare 2, Knex returned to the franchise with renewed focus. So at the 2017 Toy Fair, they unveiled 3 new playsets and 2 additional blind bag series, all based on the game. The smallest set was called Crazy Target and featured a zombie foot soldier facing off against a Garden Warfare style Sunflower. Then we got Bow Blasting, that included a pea shooter battling Captain Deadbeard, and finally, the flagship set was called Backyard Battle, as it depicted Citron fighting a Z-Mech for control of the backyard. For the blind bags, Series 4 featured pea shooter, Citron, Rose, Colonel Corn, Foot Soldier Zombie, Super Brains, Imp, and Captain Deadbeard. And Series 5 was pretty much the same, as it included Plasma Pea, Power Flower, Rose, Colonel Corn, Scientist, Super Brains, Pylon Imp, and Captain Sharkbite. While the character sculpts remained solid and each figure still had some type of play feature or accessory, it was clear that the line was being held down by harsh budget constraints. You see, at the time, the construction toy market was extremely competitive, and Plants vs. Zombies was still popular, but long past its peak. So Knex was investing very little money into the line and hoping they could make it back by squeezing every cent out of the molds. But then, tragedy struck. On September 18th, 2017, Toys R Us filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, why does this matter? Well, Toys R Us was Knex's primary distribution partner in the US. Without them, Knex lost its most reliable client, one that consistently ordered thousands of units across product lines. And the fallout was immediate. With no major retailer backing their inventory, banks refused to offer Knex any lines of credit. As a result, Knex quickly cancelled most of its vault product. For Plants vs. Zombies, they did manage to release the 2 smallest sets in blind bag series 4 and 5, but sadly they cancelled the Backyard Battle. In February 2018, Florida-based toy company Basic Fun acquired Knex for an undisclosed amount of money. Then, unexpectedly, a few months later, an unannounced Series 6 of the Plants vs. Zombies blind bags began appearing at Dollar Tree. Though Series 6 wasn't anything new. It reused molds from Series 4 and 5, as it included Plasma Pea, Power Flower, Citron, Colonel Corn, Scientist, Foot Soldier, Imp, and Captain Sharkbite. Considering the lack of promotion, it's likely this wave was leftover inventory that Knex needed to clear out after the acquisition. In the end, the Knex Plants vs. Zombies line had a strong design direction and terrific play value, but it was ultimately dragged down by a company facing financial turmoil that was unable to financially support the brand. Thankfully, the story doesn't end here. Enter China. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Plants vs. Zombies is immensely popular in China. Ever since the release of the first game, it became something of a cultural touchstone, spawning animated content, China-exclusive spin-offs, strange tie-in products, theme park attractions, and most importantly for this video, tons of construction toys. But here's the thing. Historically, China has been the capital of bootleg or unofficial LEGO products for the past 30 years. Mostly because A, the government prioritizes local business growth or foreign IP protection, and B, in Chinese culture, copying isn't perceived as bad, but as a form of flattery. You copy something in order to learn how it works, and then you look for ways to improve it. And when it comes to Plants vs. Zombies, after Knex launched their construction line, Chinese brands noticed the opportunity and followed soon after. The first company I could find that released bootleg Plants vs. Zombies construction products was called Lele. And these are the laziest bootlegs I have ever seen. They simply reused the LEGO minifigure, printed zombie designs on it, and for the plants, they didn't even bother. They just printed them on a round plate and called it a day. However, by 2016, things began to change drastically. As Chinese toy companies grew into legitimate corporations, the government started enforcing stricter copyright laws to protect its own businesses. This shift allowed LEGO to finally take legal action against Lepin. Now this sent shockwaves across the Chinese toy industry and forced many manufacturers to reevaluate how they operated. And that brings us to 2017, when Wangzhong Shaoxing Animation Technology, also known as Trendy Sound, launched a fully licensed line of Plants vs. Zombies 2 construction toys. Now, the sets themselves were pretty straightforward. They featured minifigure-style zombies and newly molded plants, each with a unique play feature reminiscent of the Knex line. Now, for 2017, they released a total of 9 sets, which for the most part followed a very similar structure with a few exceptions. Since these were based on Plants vs. Zombies 2, Trendy made starter sets for each world that included a plant, a zombie, and a small build tied to the theme. We got one for the far future, one for ancient Egypt, one for the Wild West, one for Pirate Seas, and one for the Lost City. Trendy also made a few zombots based on each world, like the Plank Walker, the War Wagon, the Tomorrowtron, and the Sphinxinator. Additionally, Trendy heavily experimented with smaller releases. They introduced a line of Wild West single pack sets that could be combined into one larger display. They also tested blister 2-packs, each including a plant, a zombie, and a small build. To finish off the year, Trendy released a series of gacha eggs that included a plant, a zombie, but with no build, effectively testing what type of product resonated most with their audience. Overall, this was a very solid start for Trendy's Plants vs. Zombies line. Its only major flaw was the inconsistent in-zombie printing, as some figures had detailed torsos while others required stickers. But in terms of design and play value, it took what Knex did well and refined it. The result was a range of sets that not only captured the spirit of the game, but also delivered solid, affordable toys that kids could enjoy. For 2018, Trendy mostly copied and pasted the formula. We got 3 sets based on Far Future, with the Gargantuar Prime being the highlight. There were also new Zombots, including the Sharktronic Zub, the Tuskmaster, and the Aerostatic Gondola. They also released another wave of gacha eggs featuring an Aki, a Chomper, a Fire Pea, a Winter Melon Pult, a Relic Hunter Zombie, a Beach Zombie, a Caveman Zombie, and a Disco Jetpack Zombie. For 2019, again, Trendy continued expanding the line, but also tested new concepts. We only got one traditional playset in the form of Penny, as the bulk of the year's products were single pack sets based on Big Wave Beach, that individually were fairly forgettable, but when combined, they form a giant Zomboss mech. Trendy also replaced the gacha eggs with traditional mystery packs that came in cylindrical containers. The coolest thing about these was that once you opened them, they could be used as stackable display stands, a concept that worked surprisingly well, especially since the series featured over 50 characters, though most were variations of existing zombies with no new plant molds, as they only introduced 4 new zombie designs. As a whole, 2019 was a thinner year, suggesting one of 2 things. Either Trendy no longer wanted to invest heavily in the line, or sales weren't strong enough to justify new tooling. In 2020, Trendy returned to the gacha egg concept, this time introducing several new plants like a sunflower, the corn cannon, a cactus, and a fume shroom. We also got new starter worlds like Neon Mixtape Tour, Steam Ages, Dark Ages, and Frostbite Caves. However, this would end up being the final year that Trendy produced traditional construction playsets. In 2021, Trendy lost the construction license for Plants vs. Zombies, but they still held the blind box license. And that's how we got the Zombot Egg Collection. These were smaller builds like the Plant Walker, War Wagon, Tomorrowtron, and Sphinxinator, shrunken down and paired with small builds. Additionally, Trendy released a Gargantuar and Imp Blindbot collection. Finally, Trendy did not release any new product for 2022, but randomly in 2023, they released the Plants vs. Zombies arcade series, which was very similar to the cylindrical mystery packs in concept. They also reused the same plant molds from 2020, but redesigned the zombies, moving away from the Lego-like figures to a more stylized look. And honestly, I prefer this. It gave the line its own identity while still fitting perfectly into the Plants vs. Zombies world. Sadly, this would be the last PVZ product Trendy released. As a whole, I like what Trendy did with Plants vs. Zombies. They adopted a lot of the source material, introduced plants Knex never did, and made the line extremely affordable and easy to army build. After week 2019, I felt like the line was regaining traction in 2020, only to end abruptly. So, who got the license next? Enter Goody. Created by the Chinese corporation Xinli Xin, Goody was launched in 2013 as, you guessed it, a knockoff Lego clone with lines like Transform series. But after China began enforcing its copyright laws, Goody shifted away from bootleg products, developing original lines, and acquiring official licenses, which leads us to Plants vs. Zombies. In 2021, they released a total of 9 sets. The first was based on Kung Fu World and consisted of a 6-in-1 collection of single packs that could be combined into a larger playset. Then we got a Cone Mech, a Football Mech, a Sphinxinator, Tomorrowtron, War Wagon, Plank Walker, Gargantuar Prime, and a buildable penny. Now, at this point you might be thinking to yourself, hey, isn't Goody just remaking what Knex and Trendy already did? And yes, but Goody had an ace up their sleeve, as the Zombots could be combined into a massive Zombot mech. While not canon to the game, this was a brilliant idea, as you could buy all of these sets individually and then put them together. My only complaint about this line is the use of Lego's minifigure. As a fan of construction toys, I like when companies are capable of developing their own identity instead of piggybacking off others. I think Goody's original sculpts are fantastic, but the use of the minifigure body completely overshadows it. For 2022, Goody didn't slow down. They released 8 single-pack zombie vehicles, a Dinotronic Mechasaur, a Dark Dragon, and introduced a new concept called backyard playsets. As the name suggests, these were simple backyard builds depicting different houses like modern day, ancient Egypt, and Neon Mixtape Tour, with the biggest set of the year being the Dark Ages Castle. While 2022 didn't have a flagship set like the Combiner Mech, I think the line didn't regress, as they continued producing affordable single packs, solid villain sets, and more traditional playsets that accurately captured the franchise's gameplay loop. For 2023, Goody kept the same approach, but experimented further. They launched 2 6-in-1 playsets, one for the Wild West and one for the Far Future. They also brought back the backyard playsets with new worlds like Pirate Seas, Dark Ages, Big Wave Beach, Far Future, and Jurassic Marsh. Additionally, they released 2 waves of single figure packs that, unlike blind boxes, you could choose which characters you wanted. And finally, Goody also introduced the book playsets that featured a foldable book-style case allowing kids to recreate modern day and Neon Mixtape Tour at smaller, portable scale. In 2024, Goody acquired the blind box license from Trendy and decided to change things up a bit. We got a total of 4 blind box series, but they did not release any new playsets that year. Yet, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because this allowed Goody to focus their entire budget on characters, as we got new plant molds that neither Knex nor Trendy made. Series 1 included a few zombies, a fire pea, a winter melon pult, a cabbage pult, and a China-exclusive Heavenly Peach. Series 2 featured 4 zombies, a coconut cannon, a snow pea, a cactus, and a parsnip. Series 3 had 3 zombies, a standard pea shooter, a cherry bomb, a squash, and a walnut. Series 4 offered another 3 zombies, a melon pult, a potato mine, a fire gourd, a lotus root, and a blover. Now, in 2025, Goody is still releasing brand new product, and they're finding ways to keep things fresh. This year we got a 5th blind box series featuring 3 zombies, Crazy Dave, a golden bok choy, a sunflower, citron, and garlic. They also introduced a new collectible type with the Eraser pen caps, featuring 4 plants and 4 zombies, which is such an odd product, yet I really like it. Goody also brought back the playsets in the form of Mechanism Scenes, a wave of 4 sets based on different worlds like Modern Day, Frostbite Caves, Kung Fu World, and Hunting Halloween, each set featuring a mechanical play feature tied to the plant defending the house. And finally, Goody also released a brand new penny after retiring the previous one, and honestly, I like this new version more, especially since it includes Crazy Dave. Overall, I really like the product Goody is making. They consistently attempt to keep the product fresh, they understand certain concepts become stale very quickly, so once an idea has run its course, they don't drag it. As someone who didn't know Goody existed up until a few weeks ago, I am genuinely excited to see what else a design team can produce. So, now comes the question, who did it best? Well, when you look at the three companies side by side, I think Knex is by far the weakest. Though they had interesting ideas like the use of motors, its construction system made the products look ugly. Then Trendy Sound had some fantastic plant sculpts and decent looking zombies, but their builds weren't all that great, especially when you compare them to Goody. So, hands down, Goody is the best, as it was able to take the concepts done by Knex and Trendy, but drastically refine them. They've given us the best Zombots, the best house playsets, and for the most part, some fantastic looking plants. To finish off the video, I know a lot of people have an inherent bias against alternative building block brands. Yes, there is a lot of trash out there, but after working on this video for a month, I've come to appreciate the hard work that goes into making these toys. All three of these companies have put together some fantastic product, and they deserve the recognition. But hey, that's just my brick opinion. Thanks for watching, and take care.